As your income, career, and entire financial world grows, you might be finding that your life is getting a little more complex, which means that you may have outgrown your financial advisor. So, today on the Wealth Cafe, I want to take some time and dive into some signs that you actually may have outgrown your financial advisor. I see it happen time and time again. The person that you started with and that got you to this point isn't always the person that is going to get you to the next million or multi-million dollars because your life is getting more complicated. And don't get me wrong, that is a great thing. We can both appreciate the person that you have been working with up until this point and also talk about and understand and identify how to know it's time to change and how you decide who that person is that you need to change to. A lot of times what I find is when I am working with a new prospective client, they will bring me all of their statements, potentially the old financial plan that their last advisor made for them, and it's very surface level. They aren't taking a look at things like taxes, looking at what it means for RSUs, different equity pieces of their compensation, even their estate plan of what would happen if something happened to them today, and how we can also plan for them to leave a legacy in the long run. And a lot of advisors don't want to get that deep into the weeds. I get it. It's a lot more work, but to me, that's the fun stuff. And to me, this is one of the first signs that it is time for you to change advisors. Typically, they aren't getting into the complexities that has been growing with your life. You probably started out and you had your typical salary, maybe a bonus, and your 401k. But as your career grew, your life and financial complexity grew with it. You probably have things now, as I mentioned before, like RSUs, equity, a spouse, kids, all these different layers and pieces, and your goals grew with it. So now you need to take a step back and say, how do all of these pieces work together to meet my goals? And a lot of it now is also using strategy and strategically sitting there and saying, okay, if my RSUs do come to a certain price point, or if they are vesting at certain levels, if I have options that are being exercised, or if I have a company that goes from private to IPO, how are we using that money? And if you have options or private equity that doesn't end up coming to fruition and IPOing, what does your life look like without it? Yes, it is a lot more work to plan for a multiple situation scenario, but these are the important moments that you now need to plan for because you have a lot more people depending on you and you probably have really big financial goals and dreams. The other thing that I see frequently happening is that a lot of advisors don't understand the complexity and the structure of your new compensation. As I mentioned, it's easy when you have things like your bonus, your traditional salary, and maybe a 401k. Where things typically get more complicated is when you have different pieces of equity, maybe even a backdoor Roth in there, a SEP IRA, different ways that you can now contribute and build wealth. If you are not an expert in this field, it can be very difficult to understand and work with clients and help them really maximize their potential and everything that they are working for. And when you have two partners, if it's both you and your spouse that have different complex pieces of your compensation, putting all of this together and taking this wider view and seeing how is this going to work for their goals, yes, it is a lot of work and it's also nuanced. And what's really important is that these advisors, they then need to make sure that they are working with your estate attorney, your tax accountant throughout the year. This is something that a lot of advisors don't understand and aren't always willing to do. The third sign that I see is a lot of advisors aren't proactive. Now, I typically see this, especially we have advisors that are an older generation and so many of them are nearing retirement. We're actually expecting to see a shortage in financial advisors. Crazy, I know to say that, but it is a problem that we are facing. And so many advisors, especially as they are nearing the ends of their career, they become less proactive. They may have been working with you for a while, they've gotten comfortable and think, that's okay. Jane has never reached out to me and asked these things. She's not worried about them. I won't bring it up. So they don't become proactive with you. They don't bring things up like tax strategies, Roth conversions, looking at estate plans, talking about how are we strategically taking tax gains in your portfolio. And these are the pieces that can make such a big difference in the long run. And having an advisor that is proactive with you year after year can really make a difference in the long run. The fourth sign you have also outgrown your financial advisor is that you no longer want somebody who is just an investment advisor. And by that, I mean the person who is picking out investments for your different retirement accounts, maybe your taxable account as well. And that's where the conversation ends. Now, this is where we've really seen the industry shift, and you have financial advisors and wealth advisors like myself who sit there and we look at more holistic planning. We are sitting here and working with the tax accountants, the estate attorneys, and we are saying, okay, how do we both look at the short-term goals, the long-term goals, and we are building out financial plans. Yes, investments are a really important piece of this puzzle, but they are a piece of the puzzle. They are not the entire picture of what we are looking at. And this goes back to what I said earlier about being proactive. A lot of holistic financial planning takes work, and it is meant to be proactive rather than reactive, which is work that many financial advisors aren't willing to do because many of them don't have to. But this should be a key indicator to you that it is time to change advisors. And the fifth sign that could be time for you to change your advisor is that they are only looking at the here and now rather than for generations to come. If legacy is something that is especially important to you and building generational wealth rather than just focusing on you and maybe you and your spouse, this is something that should be a red alert, sirens going off in your head moment, because you want to make sure that, especially when it comes to things like estate planning and taxation, that you are doing things like spending your money in a strategic way and also pulling from accounts where it makes the most sense to spend from your accounts, and then strategically planning for what you want to leave behind. For example, something like a traditional IRA is one of the worst assets that you can leave behind for the next generation. Something a lot of people don't know, and something that is not talked about enough, typically because you have the 10-year rule and what you are forced on when you have to take out this money. And it often happens for the people that inherit that money. It often happens when they are in their highest earning years. And unless you are communicating this with your financial advisor and they are proactively asking you questions and understand that legacy is essential to you, they may not have this information and aren't really having that forward thinking and planning for it. So if legacy is something that is important to you, you need to make sure you are aligned with a financial advisor that has that forward thinking and is helping you prepare for the generations to come. So now that we've covered all of these different signs on what to be looking out for, and you probably have these alarm bells going off in your head thinking, ooh, yikes, my financial advisor probably isn't the right fit for me anymore, that's okay. It is a possibility for you to change, and it's important for you to change because you could be leaving money on the table, and for not only you, but also for future generations, and also different opportunities when it comes to your money on strategies you could be using, planning tools, and ways you could be maximizing all of the hard-earned money and wealth that you have built. So how do you actually switch to a new advisor? The first thing I encourage you to do is sit down and think, okay, what are the things, especially that I've talked about in this episode, that are important to me? Is it legacy? Is it tax planning? Is it having that holistic strategy? And it can be more than one. Advisors, especially in today's day and age, typically can be specialists in more than one area. And so make sure you understand what are key areas that are important to you, and write down where are the gaps that you see in your current financial advisor. What are the things that you wish they were doing? As you're interviewing new financial advisors, these are great things to ask them and say, hey, how do you handle situations like legacy planning? What do you do in terms of tax planning? These are great questions to ask them and see how they respond and react, because this will then trust your gut in this moment. This is a prime time to do so. This is a great time for you to sit there and say, okay, I like the way they manage their portfolios and they manage these different strategies. Now, in terms of finding a new financial advisor, a great thing for you to do is ask for referrals from friends. If they have an advisor that they really like, or you can also apply for an introductory call with us, you can then get a sense of what does it look like in the future and aligning yourself with an advisor who really stands out and matches your goals. We are starting into a new year, and this is a prime time to kick off 2026 by transitioning to a new advisor and to use this time to really maximize your wealth and your growth by aligning with somebody who aligns with your goals. This is a good time to either apply for an introductory call with us, speak to your friends and family about who they work with, and really move into aligning with a new advisor for your future. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Wealth Cafe, and I will see you again in 2026.